The studio always looked beautiful in the morning. Lights glowed softly, cameras hummed quietly, and the entire place felt like it was stretching awake, just like the millions of viewers who tuned in each day. But today, there was something noticeably different. A strange mixture of warmth and heaviness hung in the air, something that even the bright studio lights couldn't completely soften. Kelly Ripa stood at her usual spot on stage, holding her cards, adjusting her mic, but her smile wasn't the same. It flickered, bright one second, uncertain the next, like she was fighting to stay composed. Everyone behind the scenes could see the difference. Kelly was usually the heart of the studio, bubbly, joking, occasionally sassy, but today her energy felt quieter, more thoughtful. And the reason was obvious to everyone. Mark Consuelos wasn't there. Usually, he'd be right by her side, cracking jokes, whispering teasing comments, tapping his foot to imaginary music. But today, his chair sat empty. The audience noticed immediately. So did the viewers at home. Even the crew felt the shift in energy. Kelly's fingers nervously traced the edges of her cue cards. She took a breath, but it trembled slightly. She wasn't used to feeling vulnerable in front of millions, but today she didn't have a choice. When the show began, she put on her usual bright smile, greeting the audience warmly, but her voice carried a softness that hinted something deeper was coming. After a few lighthearted moments, she finally paused, drawing in a long breath. "I know everyone is wondering where Mark is," she said gently. Her smile wavered again. The audience leaned in, sensing an emotional moment forming. Kelly glanced at the empty chair beside her, the space that usually radiated Mark's energetic spirit. She continued, her voice tender. "He had to step away very suddenly this morning, and I just want to be honest about it." The crowd grew silent. Even the cameras seemed to soften their focus, respecting the moment. Kelly looked down for a moment, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. When she lifted her head again, her eyes shimmered, not with sorrow, but with deep affection. Mark didn't leave because something terrible happened. He stepped away because sometimes life gives you a moment that you absolutely can't miss. The audience exhaled softly, relieved yet curious. Kelly continued, voice warm with emotion. "Last night, one of our kids called with a surprise. They were flying into town unexpectedly, and they didn't want to tell us ahead of time. They wanted it to be a surprise. Mark, being Mark, he panicked like a sitcom dad and decided he had to leave early this morning to pick them up." The audience burst into laughter, instantly picturing Mark scrambling in his pajamas, looking for keys, running out the door. Kelly laughed too, wiping the corner of one eye. That man can navigate live TV, film sets, full schedules, and yet the second his kid says, "Dad, I'm coming home," he turns into a charming, chaotic hurricane. The warmth in her laughter slowly faded into something softer, more emotional. "But that's why I love him," she said quietly. "He shows up every time, for every moment that matters." She paused, looking toward the empty chair again, as if imagining him sitting there, handsome, playful, teasing her lovingly about getting emotional on camera. Kelly continued, "Mark left so suddenly, the crew thought something was wrong. But the truth is, he left because he wanted to be there for someone he loves. And in a world where everyone is busy all the time, that's beautiful." The audience reacted with soft applause, touched by the tenderness in her voice. She pressed her hand lightly against her chest, steadying herself. "And I'll admit it, I cried a little this morning. Not because I was sad he was leaving, but because it reminded me how lucky I am to have someone who loves so fiercely and shows it without hesitation." The audience awed, melting at her confession. Kelly added with a playful smirk, "And also because he left the kitchen a complete disaster, but mostly because of the love thing." Laughter filled the studio again. The show continued with Kelly sitting alone, but her energy gradually grew brighter with each passing moment. She shared funny stories about Mark attempting to pack a suitcase in 20 seconds, tripping over shoes, blaming the dog for his own clumsiness, and shouting, "Where are my keys?" even though they were literally in his pocket. Every joke softened the heaviness in the room, turning it into something warm and
during
uplifting.
a quiet moment between segments, Kelly placed her hands on the desk, leaned slightly forward, and spoke directly to the viewers. You know, life surprises all of us. Sometimes you think the day is going to be normal, simple, predictable, and then suddenly everything flips. But I think those moments remind us just how important it is to love without holding back. Her eyes softened again. When Mark grabbed his coat and ran out the door this morning, he shouted, "Tell everyone I'm okay," like he was rushing into battle. But really, he just wanted to get to our child before they walked out of the airport alone. She smiled, shaking her head affectionately. "He's dramatic, but he's lovable. And he's mine." The audience applauded again, this time louder, with warmth flooding the room. The rest of the show flowed beautifully. Kelly, even without Mark by her side, carried the energy with grace, humor, and honesty. Her vulnerability made the episode more meaningful. It felt real, intimate, like viewers were sitting in her living room hearing her heart speak. But the best moment came near the end of the broadcast. Just as Kelly was preparing to sign off, the side door of the studio burst open. A figure slipped inside quietly, trying not to make noise, but failing spectacularly. Mark Consuelos stepped into the light, out of breath, hair slightly messy, wearing a jacket that looked like it had been put on mid-run. He held a travel bag in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other, staring at Kelly with the guilty smile of a husband who knew his timing was awful, but adorable. The audience gasped, then erupted in cheers. Kelly turned around, eyes widening in surprise. "Mark?" He lifted the coffee cup helplessly. "I brought peace offerings." Kelly laughed so hard she nearly bent over. "You're unbelievable," she said, walking toward them. Mark shrugged, still smiling. "I dropped our kid off at the house. They're safe, fed, and currently raiding the fridge." The audience roared. Kelly reached him, gently smacking him on the arm. "You scared me this morning." "I know," he said softly, leaning closer. "And I'm sorry." Kelly softened instantly, the earlier emotion returning. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tenderly. "You're forgiven, but next time, maybe text me before running out like a dramatic action hero." He grinned proudly. No promises. The audience melted as they stood close, sharing a warm moment that felt both intimate and cinematic. Kelly looked at him lovingly. "You made me emotional on live television." Mark leaned his forehead lightly against hers. "You looked beautiful." The audience cheered again, almost drowning out their laughter. Kelly turned back to the camera, still holding Mark's hand. "Everyone, thank you for being with me today. Life is full of surprises, but the best ones are the people who make you feel loved." Mark added, with a playful wink, "And the ones who forgive you when you sprint out the door without brushing your hair." Laughter exploded through the studio. And with that, the show closed. Not with tension, not with sadness, but with a warm reminder that love, family, and unexpected moments make life richer than any script ever could.